So now that we've completed the blog section, so the fetching of all of the blogs and then also linking out to an individual blog like so, what we now want to do is fetch all of the Pokemon and then render it out in this sort of grid format. And also this is responsive as well. So if we shrink the screen size, you can see it can go down to 2 columns instead of 1. So this is using display of grid. And you can see here, we are mapping out all of the relevant Pokemon and then linking them out. So what we're going to look at now is how to fetch API data using the GraphQL queries from Gatsby. So if I just close this down, the API we are going to be using is from a plugin called Gatsby Source Pokey API. So as you can see here, I've got the documentation up. It's gatsbyjs.com/plugin/Gatsby Source Pokey API. And here are the steps. They're quite simple. What I'm going to do is first of all, install this. So let's go into our project and just close our project down and paste this in. So what that does is it installs the Pokey API. So again, what we need to do is access the Gatsby config.js. If we scroll down, we have all of our plugins here, and then the objects. If you wanted to extend the object, all we need to do is add the object of the Gatsby source Pokey API in here. So quite simple. All we need to do is copy this object over here, and then back in our project and paste this in. So now what we are doing is we are using the Pokey API and we are fetching the number of Pokemon as one of the options. So we could change this to whatever number we want, but I'm just going to select 251 as it is on the example. So let's save that. So what we want to do is we want to access the graphical layer and find this Pokey API within our graphical Gatsby layer. So let's go ahead and do that. So in our graphical project here, so this is where we fetch all of our queries. So in here, we should see a Pokey API, but at the minute it's just running the project and it's installing all of the relevant dependencies that it needs. So because we've installed Pokey API, it should turn up here. So now if we refresh the page, you can see here that we have the Pokemon showing up here on the side, and we also have the all Pokemon. So the all Pokemon is to fetch all of the Pokemon, and then we look at the individual Pokemon to fetch the single Pokemon. So first of all, if we go back in the docs, you can here it says how to query. So you can essentially copy this query. But what we want to do is to select our own queries. If we go into our final build, you can see here, we're fetching the name only. And then we are also fetching the type of Pokemon here. So that's what we will need along with the final thing, which is the count of Pokemon. So at the minute, we have 251 being fetched. So all we need to do is in here, we select all Pokemon and then we go into nodes. And in nodes, we have stats here and we also have types. So I want the types, I want the image, I want the ID, and I also want the name. So let's play that. And now you can see here we have types as an array. So certain Pokemons have multiple Pokemon types. And then we have the image, which is a PNG image on a URL, and then the ID and also the name. And then the final thing we want is the total count. So all we need to do for that is click this one, which is total count here. And now if we press play on that, close the nodes down, and then here you can see the total count. So what we'll do is we will copy this query here, and I'm going to change this query name. So it's going to be all Pokemon query. And this query is going to be made on the home page. So this query will happen before the home page renders. So let's go into the home page here. And then all we need to do is export const of query or page query is equal to GraphQL. And then we paste in the query and then we just close the query off like so. And then we also need to import GraphQL from Gatsby. So that is the query we make. And then in the props, we get access to the data. So let's destructure the data here. And what I'm also going to do is give this index page a type. So React functional component, and then we need to define the props type. So I'm just going to do it inline in here. So type of index page props is equal to the data. And then the data is essentially going to be this here. Now, what you can do is extract this portion here into a Pokemon type. So what we'll do is we'll copy everything within the data, and I'm going to create this as an all Pokemon type. So if we go into types, and then I'm just going to create a new file, Pokemon.ts, and this type is going to be export type of all Pokemon type, like so, and then if you just paste it in, so now you have the old Pokemon type, and then you can extract this further, and then you can also create a type for the nodes as well. But I'm just going to keep it as it is. This isn't the best TypeScript, but essentially you have the type now, so we can copy this, and instead of this data here now, we can just paste in the old Pokemon type like so. So it just cleans up the page a little bit further, and then we just need to copy this and paste that in here. Again, you can create a type.ts file for this and extract that, and then the query is on the page here. So essentially now when we console log the data, we should be seeing the Pokemon data that we are fetching. So what we need to do now is just quickly clean this up a little bit and save, and then let console log the data. And this is going to be the home page data. And I want to see if we are fetching the Pokemon data on the home page. So let's go into our browser, and if we click to the home page here, so we're on the home page, I just want to inspect and see if we are receiving the old Pokemon data. So at the minute, if we scroll up, we aren't receiving anything. Let's just refresh the page. And now you can see here we have homepage data. So let's expand that. And the query we have made, so we are getting the nodes, which is correct. And there are 251 objects within the array of nodes. And we also are getting the total count. So let's just double check one of the nodes to see if that is fetching the correct data. So as you can see here, now we are fetching Bulbasaur. We have the image as well and the ID along with the types. So what we will do next is render that out onto the page.